Hello, all you beautiful and amazing people. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the show. If you're new to the channel, I'm your host, Hyde, and this is Hide and Seek Media, where we talk about news, sports, politics, and much more. The Biden administration State Department says they have no resources to help stranded Americans get out of Afghanistan. The Taliban unveils their leadership for the new Afghan government, also allowing 200 people to leave on a flight out of Kabul while leaving others stranded in a nearby smaller airport. And a congressman arranges a rescue mission that I believe was a smokescreen for something else. I get into all of that and more. But before we get into that, make sure to click the link down below and join my locals community where you can get access to all of my articles, videos, and exclusive content made only for locals. And if you join my community, you'll be entered into a drawing where you can win free merchandise from the Hide and Seek Media store at the end of the month. So make sure to click the link down below and join the community. Now, let's get into it. The Biden administration's State Department says it has no resources to rescue trapped flights in Afghanistan and no reliable means to confirm details. So basically, the Biden administration is saying everybody that wanted out got out, except for these people who still want out, but the Taliban's not letting them out. And we don't have anybody on the ground or anybody that can help. And so what we've basically done is we've kind of screwed over all these Afghans and Americans that didn't make it to the airport because the Taliban had all the roads, blocked off with checkpoints and whatnot. So here we are now, right? Hundreds of Americans and Afghans and other special immigrant visa holders and green card holders and whatnot from other places, all waiting, right, to try to get on airplanes that are fueled and waiting at the airport for them. But they can't leave because the Taliban won't let them leave, and the State Department has no means of getting them out. Right? So the Daily Wire reports, Biden State Department says it has no resources to rescue trapped flights in Afghanistan, no reliable means to confirm details. They go on, they say, responding to claims that it is blocking flights carrying Americans and lawful permanent residents, LPRs, from leaving Mazar-e-Sharif Maz airport in Afghanistan, the Biden administration State Department reportedly admitted that it has few resources available to facilitate the evacuation and that they had no reliable information about the trapped flights. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there because no reliable information about trapped flights. Glenn Beck has been all over social media, all over his podcast and shows, and everywhere else I've seen him talking about this, that the State Department has stopped him from being able to get the flights that him and the organization he is working with, the flights they have organized. The State Department won't let them leave either. And I believe that it has to do more with the Taliban telling the State Department not until we get something, right? And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But the Daily Wire goes on to report, as the Daily Wire noted Sunday, there are conflicting reports as to who is preventing planes carrying individuals rescued by a non-governmental organization, or NGO, from taking off from Maz. Individuals associated with an organization handling the flight said that the State Department is the only obstacle to the chartered planes leaving the airport. But sources close to the situation told the Daily Wire Sunday that while the State Department is not negotiating landing zones, the Taliban is also making significant demands, effectively creating a hostage situation on the ground in Afghanistan. So, if you heard what I just heard, right, there is now a hostage negotiation going on in Afghanistan for 6 plane loads of people. 6 chartered flights. Can't get out because the Taliban want money. Right? They go on to say, as the State Department official A State Department official, however, told the Washington Free Beacon that the State Department's hands are tied and that they have no resources on the ground to assist or even provide reliable information on the passengers. Now, you let thousands and thousands and thousands of people pour through the gates at Kabul airport trying to get out with very minimal vetting. And now you're telling us that you can't get these people out because they're not vetted. You just did it. But the real reason is because you took all of your resources out of Afghanistan. All of them. Military, civilian, contractor, gone. Because the Taliban said so. Wow. We do not have the personnel on the ground. We do not have the air assets in the country. We do not control the airspace, whether over Afghanistan or elsewhere in the region, the official told the Free Beacon. We understand the concern that many people are feeling as they try to facilitate further charter and other passage out of Afghanistan. Well, let's see. The U.S. government was charging everybody $2,000 to get out. So this is really no different. Only now the Taliban's not letting them out. Or the State Department. A spokesperson added that given these constraints, we also do not have a reliable means to confirm the basic details of chartered flights, including who may be organizing them, the number of U.S. citizens and other priority groups on board, the accuracy of the rest of the manifest, and where they plan to land, among other issues. I'm pretty sure these organizations are doing their best to vet as many people as they can, but they're there to just get people who don't want to live under Sharia law and don't want to live under Taliban rule. You have to understand. Okay, so I'll give you an example. You all saw the story of people hanging off the airplane, right, when it took off at the beginning of all this, right? When we saw the C-17 taking off from Kabul airport and people just hanging off the sides, clinging desperately, trying to get away. Do you know that one of the people that fell to their death from that very flight was a 19-year-old kid? All right. Now, if you're not old enough to know what that means, let me explain it to you. Okay. This kid was born into a U.S. occupied Afghanistan. That's all he's ever known. He didn't know what Afghanistan was like before the U.S. got there. All he knew was that the U.S. troops were there and that there was democracy and there was, you know, some levels of freedom and whatever. And then, like that, in a blink of an eye, in less than a month, your whole world is turned upside down. Now, some of us here in this country are starting to get a small taste of that, right? We're starting to see that happen here. But this happened in a month in Afghanistan. So you can imagine the level of fear some of these people have. Some of these 19-year-old kids, 18-year-old kids, 20-year-old kids who were born into a U.S. occupied Afghanistan. That's all they know. Of course they're going to flee. And you just turn it over to basically terrorists. Good job, Joe. You turned over this country to a bunch of terrorists who are now not letting Americans leave. And the Taliban, of course, say they have no idea what is going on. This is not true. Our mujahideen have nothing to do with ordinary Afghans. This is propaganda and we reject it. Okay? So, basically, the Taliban is saying that what the Biden administration is telling everybody is propaganda and bullcrap. And they're not going to take kindly to it. Maybe that's why they're not letting those planes leave, because Pinocchio Joe is out there lying on people again, like he always does. They're too busy, right? The Taliban's too busy. They've just unveiled their new government, right? As we see here from timcast.com. Taliban unveils Afghanistan's new government. White House quiet on recognition, right? So the article goes on to say that the Taliban have released the names of their leaders, their ministers or prime ministers or whatever. And when the White House was asked about it, right, this article from Timcast goes on to say the White House declined to comment on whether the Biden administration will acknowledge the legitimacy of the incoming government. Well, apparently they are acknowledging the legitimacy of this government because they're trying to negotiate with them. They're trying to work out deals with them so that they can get Americans out that they left behind. So how can you, out of one side of your mouth, say, we don't know if we're going to recognize them as a legitimate government, but at the same time, they're the ones in control and we have to negotiate with them? No, you turn around and you say, you let our planes and our people leave, or I fly the B-2s back in and we level your freaking government. What are you going to do, Taliban? Are you going to pick a war with the greatest freaking military in the world? I think not. I think those planes would be leaving tomorrow. But Pinocchio Joe and his weak-ass administration don't have the cojones to do that, right? So, here we are in basically a hostage situation. The White House goes on to say, there's no rush to recognition, and that will be planned dependent on what steps the Taliban says, according to Jen Psaki, press secretary. The world will be watching whether they allow for American citizens, whether they allow individuals to leave who want to, and how they treat women and girls around the country. She added, I don't have a timeline for you. In the end, you pulled the military out first, left to scramble. Wait, you closed. Okay, let's get the timeline straight here. Okay, you closed Bagram Airfield in the middle of the night with no notice or warning to the Afghan government. Then you pulled the military out before you got all the civilians out, and now you have hundreds of Americans and Afghan civilians that want to leave the country that can't because they're being held hostage. Good job, Joe. But the Taliban did finally let one plane leave. Okay, they did let one plane leave with about 200 people. According to the Daily Wire, Taliban finally allows Westerners, including Americans, to board commercial flight out of Kabul. So this isn't even the flights, the chartered flights that have been put together that's at the other airport, at the Maz airport, right? This is a completely different flight. Right? The Taliban agreed Thursday to allow commercial flights of 200 Westerners, including some Americans, to depart from Kabul airport, the first such departure since the United States pulled out of Afghanistan last month. Scores of Westerners boarded Qatar Airlines flights to Doha, Qatar, according to the Associated Press, and at least 200 more individuals are expected to be allowed to leave, though it is not clear whether any of those evacuees will be Afghan nationals with special visas or green cards. So they are going to let people leave, but it may not be people that can come here. They may be holding on to those people. They go on to say, it's also unclear whether among the Westerners allowed to leave Kabul Thursday were those Americans waiting to depart on a series of flights out of Mazar-e-Sharif Airport. Flights that were delayed, according to reports, because the Taliban have been asking for concessions, including increased financial support. Give us money and you can have your people. Sounds like ransom to me. Some 200 foreigners, including Americans, left Afghanistan on a commercial flight out of Kabul on Thursday, the the first such large-scale departure since U.S. and other forces completed their frantic withdrawal over a week ago, AP reported. It goes on to say, a senior U.S. official who spoke on condition of anonymity because he wasn't authorized to talk to the media provided the number of Westerners on the Qatar flight and said two senior Taliban officials helped facilitate the departure, the new foreign minister and deputy prime minister. Americans, U.S. green card holders, and other nationalities, including Germans, Hungarians, and Canadians, were aboard, the official said. So some people are getting out, and that's good. That's good. But you know what? The others that are stranded and still waiting to get on those chartered airplanes that are on the Mazar-e-Sharif airport, those guys, we need to get them out too. We need to be doing more things like Oklahoma Congressman Markwayne Mullin, right? He gets on a plane with some vets and tries to go rescue an interpreter, right? We have this story from the New York Post. GOP lawmaker defends attempted Afghanistan rescue. I'm not Rambo, right? So if you've been following what's been going on in Afghanistan, then you know this story by now, right? 3 congressmen made unauthorized trips to Afghanistan. 2 of them were just going to watch, basically, to try to get to bolster their clout, I guess, right? And waste American taxpayer dollars by going over there. But one of them was actually trying to do something, right? And you have Congressman Markwayne Mullin from Oklahoma, who attempted to get into Afghanistan so that he could rescue an interpreter for a group of military vets and special operators, veterans who, wanted to try to save their interpreter. Let's see what the New York Post has to say. A Republican lawmaker from Oklahoma who attempted to fly to Afghanistan as part of a rogue rescue operation at Kabul's international airport defended the trip Friday night. Now, this article is from September 4th, saying he would do it again tomorrow. However, Rep. Markwayne Mullin admitted, I'm not Rambo. I never pretended to be Rambo, Mullin told Fox News special report. Out of all the guys that I was working with, I'm the lone man on the totem pole. And I understood that. But they felt like I could assist them. How? Logistically, maybe opening the doors for them, making some phone calls, being able to take them in the SIVs, Afghan visa applicants and American citizens as they come onto the plane. Mullin, who was the first elected to Congress in 2012 and doesn't have a military background, told host Brett Baier that as the American withdrawal from Afghanistan was winding down, he started getting calls from friends of mine that was in the service that said, can you help our interpreter get out? Okay. So then, he goes on to say that he, that these were tier 1 operators. They were Delta Force guys, special forces. They were trying to get their, interpreter out. Right. And I won't really go into too much more of this story because that's not what I want to get into. Because we all know about the 13 soldiers that lost their lives at the Abbey Gate at the Kabul airport. I believe that this rescue attempt was an attempt to get one of those soldiers out of Afghanistan. On that list of names of 13 soldiers that were killed in that explosion, there was one that stood out to me more than anybody else. And if you watched my other video on it, you'll know this. So the one name that stood out to me out of all those 13 soldiers that were killed in that bombing was Staff Sergeant Ryan Naus. I think I'm saying his name right. It could be Knaus or Naus, but it was Staff Sergeant Naus. That's how I'm going to say it. From the Army. He was the only Army soldier killed in that explosion. And he was a 23-year-old staff sergeant, right? And he was in a combat MOS. He was a special operator attached to a PSYOPs battalion out of Fort Bragg. I believe that Congressman Mullin's attempt to get into Afghanistan to rescue an interpreter was a smokescreen to try to get this soldier out. and they were unable to do so. That's just me. That's me looking at things with a conspiratorial mind. Maybe I'm completely crazy. If you think I'm crazy, let me know in the comments down below. But if you think I'm doing a good job, make sure to smash that like button and share this video on all social media platforms. I'm trying to change the URL up here from all these funky letters and numbers to my channel name. But the only way I can do that is if people like you share this video. So please make sure to share this content and get it out there. And if you've made it all the way to the end of the video and you haven't done this already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notified anytime I drop a new video. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch y'all later.